earphones, kombucha.
You can talk with your hands, but they have to be up here.
My kids play Minecraft, that's like the video game in my house. We did it!
Hey there, we're the Reading Queens, and we're here to blab about our favorite books, why we love them, and the book boyfriends we wish were real. Welcome, everyone. We're so excited you're here. I'm Valia, and today I'm joined by three of our awesome queens. Ladies, please say hello.
Hello, I'm Tess.
Hey, I'm Kay.
I'm Rose.
And yeah, we're here to talk about some books and some other stuff, and let's just get into it. So, how's everybody doing today?
I am super, super tired because I was up so late playing a video game with my daughter.
Ooh, what game?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so first of all, I am not a huge gamer, but I was up there with her and it was late and she was playing this game and I was completely hooked. It's called Detroit Become Human.
Oh my gosh, that game is so intense.
I honestly was so riveted because, number one, I've never played a game like that before. And it's story-based, quick time. And it's a game that, it just has you on the edge of your seat. So, Valia, you've heard of it. Have y'all?
No, I don't know what
Kay,
this is.
Tess?
No.
Okay.
I do not. My kids play Minecraft, that's like the video game in my house.
It is so crazy. So it is a world where there are AI, androids, and artificial intelligence, and they are breaking through and becoming what's called deviant. And the story follows three androids and their quest to overthrow and become accepted by the humans and recognized. And so it's kind of like a revolution. And you're going through the storyline with these characters and it's asking you quickly, what do you want to do here? Do you want to you're in this alley and there's a human ahead and he has a gun. Do you want to confront? Do you want to hide? Do you want to whatever? And so you have to pick your path and you have to pick it fast. And then you're okay, you're hiding. And then this happens and then this happens. And so the whole thing, you're freaking out because you're trying to figure out the best things to do to accomplish your goal, which is basically to be recognized as these androids. It's just crazy.
It's cool too because you're not following a one type of an android either. There's a caregiver one that protects a little girl, and then there is a guy who was a caregiver to an old man, and then there's a police detective android. And so each one of them has a different decision to make in order to figure out if they're going to be deviant or not. And then it really takes this huge, without spoiling anything.
I know.
There's just so much. And sometimes it's not quick time. Sometimes they give you time to make a decision. And then it's even worse because you're sitting there and you're wait a minute. And also depending on what you do, because you take the time, for example, one of the androids is a caregiver, right? She's basically a slave to this dude. And he brings her home and your job is to clean the house. So you're washing the dishes and you're taking out the trash and you're doing all this stuff. And if you do certain stuff, it unlocks different paths. And the cool thing about the game too is that you can take a view of a map of your decisions. So you see there's all these locked areas. That means that something that you did here could have unlocked all of this stuff up here and taken you into a completely different path. And so it's really cool. And then I don't know if you know this, but you can look at different people's timelines and see how they intersect. Anyway, it's so intense and there's so much that go into it. And I've actually watched the guy that plays Connor. One of the androids, the detective, he played the game. And so I watched a little clip of him talking.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he talked about how It's really cool. You should look it up since like once you guys finish, when she's
I love
finished
Connor.
it. Yeah, he's awesome. And it was really cool because you get to like see his point of view of how like he got into the character, then him like playing it. It's it's like a weird inception. But yeah, it's so intense and like, yeah, it's insane. Anyway,
so good.
yes. It takes so much time. I don't play those games anymore because I can't.
And it's really hard to walk away from it. So it was 3 a.m. and I was helping Olivia and we were trying to decide what to do with this one thing. It's kind of at the end, so I won't say anything. And I was like, you need to do this. And she was like, I don't think that's the thing to do. I'm like, yes, you need to do it. And so she did it. And then like a whole bunch of people ended up dying. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe not. So then she actually went back. Yes, and picked a different path and made a different decision. And I wanted to like play it out with her, but it was 3 a.m. and I was so tired. So she had to
3 a.m. You played until 3 a.m.?
Oh my God. Yes, I'm so tired right now. I'm totally paying the price.
I don't even stay up past midnight unless I'm having insomnia.
I was so tired. And plus I was reading Mistborn because I was getting reading the very end of it. And I was like, wait a minute. I'm reading this revolution and I'm watching this potential revolution on this game, and I was like having all of these like heart palpitations because I was so into it. I was like, chewing my nails. It was so good.
Those kind of games are just like so intense. There's a game that I haven't played, but I like I'm obsessed with it basically. And one of my friends played it, and so he like walked me through what was happening and stuff. And then I watched a gameplay on YouTube of it from a guy who's not a gamer because I was like, I can relate to this because I'm not either. And it's called Until Dawn, and it's like a horror survival, but it's story based like that. And you have to like, and it's just so fascinating. Like the amount of work that goes into that, and just like, you're literally making decisions for actual like people, on the screen. It's like so intense. I can't do that. I would never write anything ever or read anything ever. I was just like, it makes sense why people just sit there for hours.
Yes. It is so addictive.
It is. I didn't play anything like that. I played this hidden mystery game on my Switch.
Ooh.
It's like a murder mystery, and then they have like little areas where you search for clues. And so it's just like a very simple, but it was so fascinating because I've never played one that had a story with it. It was always like, here's a screen and you need to look for these items, but this one actually had like, you're a detective and there's a murder mystery. And you have to go through like the case files and stuff like that. So I gave myself like an hour and played that. And after that I was like, I need to put this away because I have other stuff to do, but I have to like schedule in time and then stop.
That's the hard part, is
great.
stopping. Playing a video game that's addicting is so hard. I beat Spiritfarer though, the game that I talked about. Yeah. It's weird though because like there's a lot of other tasks you can still do, but I basically saw like the end of it or whatever, like the end story, but I can still go back and play it. I'm just really impatient. Like I kind of knew that there was going to be some kind of like twist ending, and it was very bittersweet, and I was like, oh my gosh. Because as I mentioned, it has some pretty like kind of sad themes, but I did beat that, but it is still so addicting to play. Like me and my husband play it together on 2-player mode, and we have to be like, okay, we're going to do this, and then we're going to stop. Then we do this and this, and then it unlocks this. And so we're like, okay, well, let's do this now. And then it unlocks that. And so we just keep doing that. And we're like, okay, so now we have to like 2 more stops, 2 more spirits to shove through the Everdor. And then we need to stop and go make dinner. Yeah. After a while, it's not quite as like, oh, I have to take Grandma to the Everdor. Now it's like, okay, get these spirits off my boat so I can get their spirit flower and upgrade my ship so I can get a better blueprint. It's like after that, it's just it's just a race to off all these characters. But it's really fun. And my daughter's she's still super into it too. It just has taken over her life. And I'm like, what is she gonna do? Is she gonna go back to like drawing pictures and like being a normal kid after this? But she's just been like
after she murdered a bunch of characters.
After she's sent all these little spirits carrots to the Everdoor. Can she ever go back to just drawing pictures again?
That's funny.
Yeah, of flowers. Can she draw pictures of flowers after that?
Yeah.
I do love the idea of video games that are story-based, because it's always fascinating to me, like as a writer, to see how somebody creates that kind of a world and then like gives you the options to do, because sometimes it's really funny. If I ever do watch like a gameplay of somebody playing a game, I'm always like, no, do this. And then it's like, it doesn't even show up as one of the options. I'm like, seriously, who thought of this? But yeah, it's really fun. That's it.
Yes, that's the end of that.
Kay's not going to say anything.
I have nothing to say about this. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just your Minecraft. Very quick side note.
Not my Minecraft. My kids' Minecraft. They like to make me like birthday, like they like to make me in Minecraft.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
This thing that looks like me, that they're like, happy birthday, Mom. They've done that a couple years in a row.
That's cute though.
It's
I
funny.
love that. Are we good? Does anybody else want to say anything before we dive into books? No? Yes.
I'm good.
Okay. I just got blank faces, so we're just going to dive into books. Nobody has anything precedent to say, which is fine because this episode is our trope episode, which just makes me so excited because I love talking about books and like diving into them. So if you guys are new and you don't know how we do this, we pick a book, each pick a different book based on the same trope. We read that and then we come back and discuss it. And this week, I'm really excited about this trope because it's unusual for us. We don't really write it in our group. So yeah, Kay can talk about that a little bit later. But basically, yes, we're going to go start off. It's the cross-class romance trope. And Tess was going to start us off and talk about her book.
Yeah. Well, I read Geekerella, which that was a fun one to choose because I normally, like the majority of the books I read are fantasy, but I also do like contemporary romance or rom-coms, and so this one is a young adult like rom-com version of a Cinderella retelling. So it has a lot of things I like about it already. It's got some romance, it's young adult, and it's a fairy tale retelling, which I love, but it's a contemporary one. So it was kind of fun to experience a contemporary fairy tale retelling because I usually don't get those. I don't usually look for those. I see them a lot in film, and Cinderella is like my favorite fairy tale to watch, like being done. Like when it comes to reading, I usually am really drawn to Beauty and the Beast, but when it comes to like movies, if it's Cinderella, I know I'm gonna just like love it. But I haven't read that many Cinderella retellings, so I read this one. I actually listened to it on audiobook, which was fun also, but it was really cute. It's about Ella, who has the classic, she's an orphan living with her stepmom, who is super terrible, and her stepsisters, who are also super terrible, and Ella's goal is to go to this con, which is called Excelsicon, and her father had like founded it, and her deceased parents were like these epic cosplayers, and they were just like basically so well known and like famous as being cosplayers at this con. And so that's like her legacy, but they're both deceased, and she is, living that Cinderella life, not being treated very well, and she wants to go to this con. And she wants to wear like her father's cosplay outfit and get it all remade. So that's her setup, right? The prince version of this, instead of him being a prince, he is a famous celebrity actor. And his name is Darian. And so right off the bat, there's that cross-class divide where he is like this super famous actor. He was on a show that was like it was basically like what we would consider shows like The OC, very dramatic teen drama, almost soap opera-esque. And he gets this part in this show that has a major fandom, which is basically, you know, what we would consider like if they did a Star Wars or Star Trek or Battlestar Galactica movie, he gets the leading role. And so right away he's getting scrutiny from these people who are big in the fandom who are like, why should this guy, this like heartthrob guy who isn't even that good of an actor and was in that dumb soap opera teen show, get the leading role in this? He doesn't know anything about like the fandom. Like, so he's getting a lot of judgment, especially since his like persona for the other show is that he's super hot. He's got a 6-pack. And to make matters a little bit more angsty between the two, Ella, it's Elle, not Ella. She has a blog and she basically rips him apart because this is like this movie she's looking forward to, and she finds out that Darian Freeman is playing the lead role, and she just, you know, she rips him apart. There's a lot of fans that are not excited about it. They don't think that he has what it takes to play this role or whatever. And then they collide in that he is going to be at that con. And I can't remember exactly what the circumstances are, but he accidentally calls her, like trying to get a hold of the people running the con. But since her dad was one of those people, she somehow gets a phone call from him. And he doesn't say, or it's a text, something like that. And then, yeah, it's a text because that's how they start their communications. And so she doesn't know who he is. He kind of just starts talking like, oh yeah, no, I cosplay. And they start this communication with neither of them really knowing who they are. Kind of like that You Got Mail movie from like, what is that, the late 90s?
I love that movie.
Oh, I loved that movie so much. I watched it so often, all the time. So it has that same feel where there are these two people who are slowly falling in love over this like electronic communication, don't know who they are, but they actually, like, she does not like him in real life, and when they finally meet, he doesn't really like her in real life. So that's the setup for it. I'm not going to give too much else away. It also does follow some pretty classic Cinderella tropes, but I thought it was really cute. I loved the setup for it. I loved the You've Got Mail feels. I loved the fact that they like did not like each other in real life and had to figure out, you know, they had to get past their like outer judgments. But yeah, the cross-class divide also comes up in that he doesn't think that he could ever have a relationship with her, or, you know, he's very controlled as a celebrity by, you know, who he can be allowed to date. He has to have these like fake relationships. He keeps getting his privacy invaded. So he feels like they could never work out. But yeah, it was really interesting. I really liked reading a cross-class romance that wasn't fantasy, because I feel like with fantasy, it's pretty easy. It's usually the prince and the servant or something like that. But this
right.
was the hot celebrity and the, you know, just regular girl next door. And it all intersected around like nerd culture, which I love. So yeah, I thought it was great. I really liked it.
That is so cool.
Yeah, that's been on my list forever.
Yes.
I actually heard about it from, I'm pretty sure, on this podcast, an earlier episode when Hanna brought it up. I think she just brought it up like pretty briefly. Yeah. But after I heard that, I'm like, that sounds like something for me.
It sounds cute, and I love that it was a Cinderella story. That's so perfect for this trope. You know, the cross-class romance. That's the classic story we always think of.
It totally is.
So that's cool.
It's true. Yeah, that's fun. Kay, you want to talk about your book?
Yeah, I will. So I want to kind of talk about this more because it just made me think of this. The cross-class romance thing with the story of Cinderella, I always think it's funny because everyone always thinks of Cinderella as a rags to riches story. I mean, always, right? It's the classic rags to riches. But it's funny because with cross-class romance, a lot of times it kind of leads to the lost princess trope, where the lost princess trope basically is when someone they're supposed to be a regular person, like a peasant or whatever at the beginning of the story, but then you find out they're a princess. Yay, right? And it seems like a lot of times the book comes across as this cross-class romance, but then you find out she's the princess, so this not actually, you know. And I feel like that is sort of how the story of Cinderella is, because we always forget about where she was before. And before her mom and dad died or whatever, they were wealthy, they were aristocratic, and then it's because the stepmother comes in and pushes Cinderella down that she goes to the rags,
right.
you know? And so it's not to me really about rags to riches. To me, it's about like coming back to that status that she had all along, except for even better because now she gets to marry the prince,
right?
You know?
And rule the whole country.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just think that's an interesting thing about cross-class romance. I guess not always. It's not always it's not always in those kinds of books where they're regaining a status that they lost. But I like to think of it as we all have that potential within us, you know, no matter where you come from, that we all kind of deserve that better life, you know? So anyway,
I love that.
That was just a thought I had. Okay, so I read We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faisal, and it was very good. I really liked it. So it has two perspectives, this girl, Zafira, and she's just the regular person, you know, she's like this hunter who catches food for the villages so they're not starving, and she has to pretend she's a boy because the leader of her, like, country or whatever hates women, so it's the whole thing.
It's a whole thing.
Anyway, yeah. And then the male character is Nasir, and he is a prince and an assassin.
Ooh,
his
both.
Father, the Sultan, the Sultan sends his son off to go kill all these people, and he's so feared throughout the whole land, you know. He's like, don't mess with the Prince of Death, you know.
That would be bad.
So, yeah. Anyway. So they don't know each other at the beginning of the story, and they have to go on this quest. They're both trying to find the same thing, and they both have very different motives, and their motives are definitely not compatible. Only one can win, kind of a thing. And then they meet up with some other people along the way as well, and it's fun. It was really great. I was frustrated that it took so long for the two main characters to meet each other. It was more than 1/3 of the book.
Oh my goodness!
And
yeah,
I'm like, just meet already. But it was worth the wait. It was great once they got together. So that was fun. All right, so with the cross-class romance, I feel like there are two different sides to it a lot of times. You have the awestruck side, where you have the girl who is just like, wow, you're a prince, that's amazing. And so I think of books like The Selection or Red Queen or Cinder, even from the Lunar Chronicles, you know, where the prince is admired and maybe they don't always get along, but they can see right away that this prince is like obviously a really great person and worth their admiration, right? And then you have the other side where the prince is like, I'm a prince, and the girl's like, yeah, I don't care. You know, like, does not impress me at all. You are nobody. You know, so this one was kind of the latter, where the girl was not impressed with his being a prince, you know, his princeliness. So I thought that was funny. Both are fun. Both have definite fun things about them, but I really enjoyed that she was just, you know, she's like, yeah, you kill people. I'm not interested in you.
You know.
Anyway, they did have some romance, obviously. I mean, yeah, of course. It was really interesting to see how they got there because they did have some pretty big hurdles to overcome. Although it is a series, so, you know, it's not everything's not perfect by the end of the book. But
you have to read on to find out more.
Yes, exactly. That's all I have. I'm looking at my notes here, and I was thinking I had another thing, but I did have another thing. Something I really love about cross-class romance, in any book that you read that has this, a lot of times they'll have, you know, you see that their problems are so different, that, you know, the person who comes from poverty, they're dealing with starvation or, you know, being cold and not having, the clothes to keep them warm or whatever. Those are their challenges. And then the person who is in royalty or the higher class, they don't have those kinds of problems. They have all their needs, all of their physical needs taken care of. But then they're worried about, like, how do I rule the country, or how do we take care of these rebels, or whatever. You see that their problems are vastly different. But it's interesting because they always find a thread of a connection where they share, they have the same desires. They both want love, or they both want people to approve of them. And so even though they have these vastly different challenges, you see that they can still relate and connect with each other. And I just like that. I think it's cool.
Oh, I love that.
And now I'm done.
that is
that when you finished?
Yeah. That is a really good segue into what I read. So I read Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. And oh my gosh, y'all, I have not read a really deep, dense fantasy in a really long time, because, a lot of times I will read, young adult fantasy that's just a little less, I don't want to say crazy, but I mean, this book had so much in it.
Yes.
I'm holding it in my hand. I wish y'all could see me. It is thick with so much happening with these characters. So let me begin by saying it took me a while to discover the cross-class romance in this book, because the romance was not the driving force of the characters or the story. So the driving force is the cross-class clash that happens between the royalty and the ska, and SKAA. The ska are the people of the land that are like slaves. They do everything for the royals. So they're working the fields, they're cleaning the streets, they live in rags, they eat whenever the royalty lets them eat. So they're poor, and they're like at the bottom of the chain as far as the hierarchy of the universe goes. So you have this world where there's the royalty at the top, the ska at the bottom, and the book starts with setting up what the classes are all about, the cross class, okay? Kelsier, he is a ska, but he rises up in the ranks of, not in the royalty, he rises up in the ranks of the ska people because he wants to be the liberator. He is working to overthrow the final empire. And the final empire is run by the Lord Ruler. So his mission is he wants to raise the ska, he wants to lower the nobility, and he wants to have a world of peace and harmony. So his big plan with his little crew is he's going to overthrow the empire. As you are learning this stuff about him and about the world, then you get to meet this woman. She's a young girl. She's 16 years old. Her name is Ven. She is a street thief, and she comes across paths with Kelsier because they are both considered, in the magic system, they are both considered allomancers. And those are people that can swallow metals and use the metals to do different things with objects. It's very confusing. It took me, like, I had to read it, and then I'm like, okay, wait a minute, let me go back and read that. Let me read this again. So you swallow the metal, like in a little vial of liquid, you swallow it, and it gives you these powers to control different objects. Like you can run fast, you can jump, you can do all these cool things, you can throw things. It's super interesting. A Mistine is a person that can only use one metal. A Mistborn is somebody that can use all the metals. A Mistborn is very rare. So Kelsier is a Mistborn, and so is Ven. And he takes her in with his crew when he finds out who she is. And he starts to train her because they're going to overthrow the final empire. So they need a whole lot of magic power. And he's like, whoa, this girl is powerful. And I'm going to use her, not use her. I'm going to ask her to join us, these scrappy crew, and overthrow the final empire. She's like, yes, I'm on board. So then this whole thing starts happening where they're infiltrating the houses of the empire. And one of the ways that they are doing that is they get Vin to dress up as a lesser royal and start going to all of these balls at all of these influential houses so that she can spy and listen and learn things and start to develop some type of camaraderie and trying to get information. And all of this is set up, and then finally we find the cross-class romance. And it is finally, it's when she goes to a ball and she's dressed in a beautiful dress, but she feels awkward and out of place, and she's never really had good food before. She's like, oh my gosh, this food is amazing. She's eating the food, but she's also trying to scan the people, like, all right, who are these people and who are these people and what are they about? And she feels out of place. And there's this one scene where she goes out into the balcony because she feels like she's in way over her head, because she is. She goes out to the balcony. She sees this guy. And yes, he looks different than the other guys because he's a little bit disheveled. His hair is kind of messy. He's not wearing a super tailored suit. His suit is a little bit kind of thrown together. And he's reading a book. Okay?
That's it.
Yes. So
she's like, I found
disheveled, bookish guy on a balcony at a ball. I'm in.
Oh, yeah. Totally. She was so in. And she was like, what? Who is this person? But then she kind of... It's almost a little bit like an Insta connection with them, because there's like sparks that fly when they like meet eyes and they start talking, and they have like their banter, and he's like, you're not like anyone else, and she's like, neither are you. And so they kind of have this very short, powerful discussion. And then when she's leaving, she finds out that he is the son of... I wrote my notes. Hold on. He is the son of the most powerful house. So there's like the empire, and then the next most powerful house is this kid's house, Venture. His name is Elend Venture, and the Venture house is like super powerful. And she finds this out. She's like, what? He's like a super powerful dude in this family, and he's out on a balcony and he's reading a book. And so the whole thing is she's trying to get information, and she has this instant connection with the most powerful house, with this guy who is reluctant to be in the most powerful house. And as the story continues, you find out that they kind of want the same thing. So she wants the ska to be liberated, and he wants something similar. I don't want to give away a whole bunch, but he is sympathetic to the ska, and he feels like the way the royal houses work, he thinks it's a terrible system. He doesn't like how everyone's trying to manipulate everyone else. And he wants change too. So they come together just as being intrigued with each other. And they have all these moments of seeing each other at all these different balls. But you don't find out a whole lot until a lot later. So I know I don't want to give anything away. But it's super cool how they come from these different places. And she's got like all of this magic that she can do because she's a Mistborn. He doesn't know, obviously, that she's a Mistborn. And she doesn't know that, what's happening with him and his family. She doesn't know anything about what he's thinking. And yet they come together for the good. The good for the good.
That's cool.
For the good of all. So
yeah, it's that same idea that it's like even though they have different challenges, they still have like a connection. That's cool.
So cool. And I could say so much more, but I don't want to give anything away because it's amazing how Brandon Sanderson takes his time with all these layers of people and what they're doing and how they feel about where they are in their station of life and what, everyone kind of wants the same thing as far as Kelsier and Vin and their crew and this reluctant prince. He's kind of like he's not a prince. He's a reluctant son of the most powerful house. So it's really kind of cool.
It is one of my favorite series, and it is, like you say, pretty heavy and dense in terms, especially if, you're coming from reading a lot of the lighter, like, young adult fantasy, but it's so good. I just love his work, but Mistborn was the first, I think it was the first, I read Mistborn first of all his books. I read that first, and I'm just, like, hooked on all of his books. There's still a couple I haven't read, but I've read the Cosmere, which is, like, the universe in which this planet, the Mistborn planet, takes place. I've read all the other Cosmere books. There's just a couple non-Cosmere books I haven't read, but I've also read Starsight. Anyways, I'm fangirling out right now that you're reading this. But yeah, some of my favorite characters and non-human sidekick characters are in this series. I love it so much.
Yeah.
So good.
He's amazing. I read Mistborn.
Amazing.
Yeah. I read Mistborn as that's the first introduction I had to him as well. And I was like overwhelmed reading it because there's so much that I don't know. Sometimes when I read like high fantasy or, those big intense fantasy books, I just sit there and stare at the pages and I'm just like, how do you do this? It's
one of the things
good.
I think he does really well is that he has very dense, heavy, intricate, like mind-blowing world building, but I think what makes it so digestible is that he's a very simple writer. You're not gonna find like this fancy
You are so right about that.
Yeah, like it's not what you go to his books for. You don't go to his books to see like these beautiful descriptions of sunsets that go on forever, and you're not gonna hear like all the dresses described in like massive detail, but he's gonna get straight to the point. The sentences are easy to read. They're not badly written sentences. They're well written, but they are not giving you more than you need because there's more than enough going on in his books already.
Right.
That is such a good point because when I was reading it, I was like, okay, this is just a whole lot of conversation. There's a whole lot of, banter, talking. And there were some times where I was like, okay, wait a minute, what does this look like? And then he would throw in something and like, okay, that's what it looks like.
A little snippet here and there.
Yeah. But then it was like, just like talking. And then you don't even know they're talking because you're so into the story. You're like, wow. But that's a really good point because I did think about that. I thought this is so cool. I love this style. It's just straightforward, Yeah.
I think that's what makes his characters so like relatable because they're so realistic in that sense that they're not, spewing some crazy like conversation or description, whatever. It's just like normal people talking. And that's something I loved about Mistborn too, because I feel like that book is also like a good example of found families because like that whole group with like that Vin finds and like all of that, I just feel like that's like their found family and just everything that happens. Like, I don't know, just it's fun to see like that dynamic in a way that doesn't like break your brain. I don't know.
Yes. And then when that one thing happens at the end, I was so sad.
Yes. It's my favorite. It's actually my favorite out of the three because of that character.
Yes.
And it's like I love. Anyway, we're not gonna say anything else.
No, we're not.
Just wait, people. But it's necessary.
Yes.
The thing that might make you sad when you're reading book one, just know that it's necessary for the whole series. It's not just for shock factor.
Which is the only way things like that should be happening.
Exactly.
Anything shocking in a book needs to have a reason. It can't just be
reason.
because you're cool and you want to be like those, you know, authors that get all the hate mail because they did something. No, it has to have a reason.
Yep, there's a big reason, but I was so sad.
Yes, authors are evil sometimes. But anyway, let's talk about the book I read, which is Amber in the Ashes. And it is the first book in a 4-book series or 5. Does anybody know? I should have checked on this. It is 4.
It's
okay.
4 books.
Wow, there's 4 already?
Yeah, the last one came out in December 2020.
Right,
so pretty recently.
But yeah, I read the first book a while back and I really, really enjoyed it. So it was fun to just like get back into the world and kind of, you know, remember what I read. But it is a dual point of view story from is it Leia
or Laia.
Yeah,
I don't know how to say it.
I listened to the audiobook, so I'm trying to remember. I think it's how does it spell? Lila?
It's Laia.
Oh, I think it's Laia and Elias. That's how they pronounce it. I'm like, why did you pronounce both those names sounding exactly the same?
That's how they sound in my brain too.
Okay,
so
that's how it was in the audiobook.
Okay, perfect. So it's dual point of view, which is something I don't read of very often. So I remember the first time I read this book, it was like unheard of for me. Everything I read was first person, so just single point of view. So that was really interesting to me, like right off the bat. But basically, it follows Laia, who in the beginning of the book, she basically her grandparents who raised her get murdered, and her brother, she finds out that her brother is in the resistance, and she, you know, leaves him behind, but then realizes that she needs to help him. So she goes and finds the resistance and basically asks them for help to rescue her brother from, you know, the prison at this point. And they agree to help her because of certain reasons that I don't want to mention. I always feel like weird giving summaries of books because I'm like, what is
without
spoilers. Don't give anything away because I haven't read it.
Okay, I'm doing very generic what it's about. Yeah. And so then there's Elias, who is in military school, and his whole plan is to desert, and because he doesn't want to be in it anymore, and there's some reasons for that too. But his plans are ruined when he is chosen to participate in the trials to be the next emperor. And so that's basically the setup of the two individuals. And what happens, we're kind of, I mean, I feel like it's already cross-class romance or cross-class. This is such a hard thing. I know. Say it 5 times fast. But it's already kind of like that, but it makes it even more so because Laia is sent to the military school to be a spy and to work as a slave to like the commandant of the school. And so who is actually Elias's mother. So basically that's how he meets her, is through basically the mom, like because she's the slave to the mom. And when I say slave, like she's legitimately a slave. Like this woman or nobody in that place treats her the Elia well at all. Like some pretty bad stuff happens to her, and so they meet and stuff happens and other stuff happens. I'm like, and then it's the end of the first book. But it was really interesting to see because kind of like we were talking about how there's just these motivations that these characters have. And, you know, with Elias, like he's never had to want for anything. And yeah, he has like an unique upbringing. So he sees things a little bit different than some others in his position might. But he still has like, he starts out basically wanting to not do anything. Like he doesn't want to be part of the military school. He doesn't want to kill certain people or do certain things. He doesn't want to be the emperor, none of that. And then things change and you just really see like his motivations change because he helps Laia and he helps and saves her a few times. And like when their relationship develops, it's just, I don't know. It was really an interesting book. And there is like some supernatural elements and some magical elements that come into play. But I feel like it would just be like too much to get into it because some of it I didn't even understand after reading the first book, which was kind of the point, because there's stuff that happens at the end that kind of contradicts what you think about like the supernatural in the book or the magic in the book. And it confused me for a second because I was like, wait a minute, is this good or bad? I don't understand. But yeah, I thought it was just a really, like, it was well written, and it was like an interesting concept. And there are other characters, like when Elias goes into the trials for the Emperor, there's a girl that goes in with him who's one of his friends who's like interested in him romantically, and then he has like a couple other friends that go into him. So there is like a good cast of characters. And I didn't read the other books yet, but I don't know if you guys have, but are the other books have more than 2 dual points of view? Do you know?
I haven't read past the book 1 either.
Okay.
I don't know if
I feel like maybe somebody mentioned something that you get other points of view, but I don't know if it was this series or a different one. But
I do think, actually, I did see something recently about the audiobook where people are saying that the cast in the audiobooks later grows. So I'm imagining that might be true, because they do, since it's first person and they had dual narrators, they probably, every time they had a new POV, they probably have to hire another like cast member.
Yeah. That's basically the gist of it, and I really enjoyed that. I do think that it's interesting to see the other side, whether it is basically both sides of like the cross class. They really have to learn to see things from a different point of view. And when you do have that romantic arc and you have those people meet, it's like the other is teaching them, you know, about that other side. And I really think that's like an interesting concept, and an interesting, just like a situation. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but it's...
No, I know what you're saying. It's cool that it's like the person who's in the higher aristocratic position, they have to see what it's like for those in poverty. But it's true the other way around too, that it's like the people in poverty have to realize there's more going on, there's more at stake than they maybe realize.
Yeah, and I do really enjoy that. I think that's my favorite part about the dynamic of having a cross class, because it's very much on that whole thing where like we as humans should never just assume that like our opinion or our view is like the only one. And this is kind of a way to be like, yeah, there's always 2 sides to every story, you know, or I guess 3. Isn't that how people say there's only 3 sides?
There's always 3.
Yeah, but it's an interesting dynamic to watch, and I love to see the characters grow as they learn, you know, because there are characters that I've read in books where they do see the other side and they don't care. They're whatever, I'm still whatever I am, you know, at this point. But seeing a character grow and take that knowledge and, you know, become something else in the end, like it's fun to see.
To learn from each other. Yeah.
But
so I just remembered that you said at the beginning how you were talking about how we don't really write this trope, and then you said I would talk about it more later, and then I never did. So let me just kind of go on with that a little bit more. So in my series that I'm publishing now, The Fae of Bitterthorn, I am kind of writing this trope a little bit, but we were talking about it before we started recording, and it's a mortal girl, and then she, you know, the love interest is a fae prince, you know, and we were saying, does it count as cross class or is it cross species? Because the fact that she's mortal and he has magic and she doesn't, that's a pretty significant thing that has a whole different dynamic from just the cross class, you know, when it's more than just the classes. Anyway, that's why.
Yeah.
It's like cross class and cross abilities.
Yeah, it's like a whole genre in itself. Like I feel like it would fit in the same thing as like vampires. It's in like the same like the paranormal aspect is like the part that's keeping them apart. And maybe the like fact that he's a prince or, you know, a king or whatever is also coming into play. But like, I feel like a lot of those like fae stories, a lot of them have to do with prejudice and like not understand. And it's still, so it is a lot of it that's very similar to cross class, because prejudice does come into it, and not being able to see from the, you know, from the perspective of the other person, and having to see from their perspective, being like, okay, humans aren't so bad after all. Or like, oh yeah, I guess not all like fae brooding fae royals are going to like bite my arm off or whatever.
It's true. It's interesting though, because another reason, like I was talking about with the Cinderella story, that's something that I just love about the Cinderella story so much. And so to me, it's hard to write the cross-class thing. I like more of writing where it's the characters regaining what they've lost, you know?
Right, yeah.
So that's another reason I haven't written. I'll have to try it. I'll have to do a true cross-class romance one of these days.
Yeah, I can't think of any of us actually doing like a true cross-class romance.
All mine are only because they're like fae versus humans, so I can't like. And my fantasy series, it was like princess paired with prince and princess paired with prince. Like it wasn't.
I'm trying to think. I feel like maybe the Skaska books are a little bit of that, because she is like from this warrior family and she is pretty high up there, and then like her best friend is just a soldier. Like he doesn't come from a huge family. But I always feel that story is more of like they can't be together kind of thing, because she's like promised to marry into a big family, you know?
And more of like the forbidden romance.
Yeah, I always feel like that more towards that versus like a cross class, because they're best friends. They've been best friends forever, so that divide is like not there because of that, you know? Only if like somebody tells them, then it's different. But anyway.
Yeah. So my new release, Fay Away, has that forbidden romance, but it also has a little bit of the cross class, because she is a princess fae and he is a normal human.
Okay.
So he's kind of...
Oh, you did it backwards?
Yeah, I did.
I like that you did it opposite. It's so cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It is so much more common to have the male be the prince, so that's cool to have it the other way around.
Yes. But he's so cool. He's got some. He's a normal human guy, but he can kind of do some things. Like he sees dead people, and
just a normal thing. It's fine.
He has these witchy ways, I guess you could say. So. But he's a normal guy, and he's forbidden. So.
And he's a very cool guy. Him and his best friend are very entertaining to read about. I love them.
Oh my gosh, I love his friendship.
I love them a lot.
Me too.
Because Rose, you write really good friendships.
I love writing friendships. It's kind of like my favorite thing I have discovered.
It's so much fun. But speaking of that, actually, we did have some books for you to check out if you like this trope. Tess had one that she wanted to talk about, so we'll have her give you her book recommendation.
Yeah, I'll start with mine. Mine is called The Princess Ballot by Jamin Eve and Tate James. This one it kind of had that same selection feel where there's like a... instead of it being like a contest, it is a girl who has basically won a ballot to go to this elite school, this elite boarding school that is full of royals and all of these like noble, and it takes place in a similar setting where it's like a dystopian future. So she's from like one of the lower castes and is very poor. So her being allowed to go to this elite boarding school is like a big deal. But so there's like all the hot brooding men are all very wealthy princes. I will say, disclaimer, this is not like it's not a fantasy like what I expected, because this is actually called a dark dark new adult college. Oh my gosh, I can't talk.
New adult.
Yes, dark new adult college romance, which I had never read before, and so I was like wondering when people were gonna start like shifting into vampires or like wolves, and it was like none of that happened, that doesn't say that it was like like I was disappointed or anything. I did not know really what to expect. I will say it is very steamy. So it's not, since it is new adult, it's not quite in the young adult or the fantasy category, which is what a lot of our recommendations are. So if you like a little bit more of that steamy thing and you like the dynamic of the selection, that one was a pretty good one. I really liked there was a lot of mystery in it. It had a Fight Club vibe, which like, seriously, you guys, I did not know what I was getting into. I was like, wait, what?
Wow.
Like, there's guys with magic powers. No, it was cool. It was very cool. It's a new genre I have not read a lot in, but if that's like somewhere you want to go dive into and you like a little steam, go on. Jump in.
So my book is called The Rebel's Blade by Frost Kay. I have not read this one yet. It's one that someone recommended to me, and I actually just started it last night, so I'm very excited. I've been wanting to read that series. I'd kind of seen it around for a little while, and I was looking for books to read in this with this trope, and someone suggested that, and I was like, yes, I've been meaning to read that forever, and it is the perfect opportunity, so I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, there you go. Rose, you had one too?
Am I next? Yes. So mine is Duel of Fire by Jordan Rivet. And this is on my TBR because, number one, I was drawn into this by the really cool cover.
It is.
Yes.
It is such a cool one.
Yes. It's got this sword and it's got this like really cool, like, I don't know what that is in the background, but
don't know what it is, but it looks pretty cool.
What is it? It's like it looks like, I don't even know.
Shield,
is it a shield? Is it an emblem? Is it a house? I don't even know because I haven't started it yet, but
if you read the book, maybe it will tell
you. There you go.
Exactly. So I was totally drawn in by the cover, and I just love reading like anything that has to do with a prince and I think she's an apprentice and she's going to train under him. And it's like, what?
Ooh.
So I put that on my TBR and I'm super excited to read it.
Yeah, that kind of actually segues into my recommendation, which is the Air Awakened series by Liskova. It's pretty much the same thing. Like she has powers that she discovers and there's like elemental magic, but there's like a prince and he trains her, to do whatever the magic requires her to do. No, I like,
nice.
I really like it when, I don't know what it is, but I love when there's like training, not just like.
Oh, you love the training.
I know, not just like the physical training, but I love when they like teach them something without
the
it
magic
being like.
Training in that book was really cool.
Yeah,
especially the scene on the off. I won't spoil it, but like the off the tower scene.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now you have to read it to find out what it is.
When you read it, you'll find out, and you're just like, what?
Yeah, but it's really cool.
I'm so intrigued.
Yeah, I mean, it's got like your kind of like cross-class forbidden romance because, she is kind of like the apprentice and he's the prince, but he's also the broody prince, and there's like the elemental magic and just like trials. Like there's just so much that goes into the series, and it is complete. There's 5 books in that series, and yeah, it's really good. So you guys should check it out.
It sounds good.
Yes.
Tess, it's all you.
I was like trying to think how to start it. Okay, well, you guys, I have an announcement for you, dear listeners. So listen up. We have a giveaway going on our Instagram, and we are giving away a trilogy, and I guarantee it's going to be books that you are going to be interested in, and you're probably going to really, really want really bad. I'll only say that. So you have to go to our Instagram to see what awesome trilogy we're giving away. Yeah, participate, and I hope you win. All of you. No, only one can win. I'm sorry.
Only one of you. But yeah, we're really excited about that. And this was a fun episode. I really enjoyed that. I never even thought about like the Cinderella aspect of that Kay talked about, like I don't know, I'm just like so curious about just the whole thing now, because
I'm making you rethink every fairy tale you've ever heard.
The riches to rags to riches.
Yeah, yes. I love that.
But even more riches than she had.
Yes. Anyway, I love that. But yeah, as I mentioned before, if you guys ever want to check out any of these books, we do have a book shop page and also an Amazon book club that you can just check out all these books and see if you want to pick them up for yourself, which you should, because these are great books that you should read.
Obviously, you guys need to read them.
Yeah, exactly. And also, you guys can always tag us on Instagram at Reading Queens Pod and the same hashtag if you're reading stuff, so we can start giving you some shout outs, for listening, because we want to get to know you. And so we want to know who's listening out there. But next week, Joanna, Hanna, and Abby will be back with us. So we're saying a quick goodbye to this group of ladies, but they'll be back eventually because they always come back.
But we'll be back.
We'll be back. Yes. But for now, let's go around the room and see who's reading what next. So Tess, what is your next book?
Oh my goodness. So I was in a reading slump, I think I mentioned last week, and I was doing pretty good, but then I don't know. I keep starting books on my Kindle, and I think that I just need to switch my format, and that usually helps, and I just refused. I was being so stubborn. So I actually just finished reading Final Girls. I read it in like 3 nights. It was so good. So I'm not reading that right now, but I feel like and it's on paperback. That's what I should mention, is that when I feel like I'm having a reading slump on one format, I switch formats, and it almost always helps. And it almost always helps if it's thriller, because it just it shocks my brain and usually gets me like really hooked where I can't put it down. And that's like exactly what I needed. I like went through that book so fast. It was really good. So I'm still kind of feeling that same thing where I need to be reading paperback. So I started reading, at least I got 6 chapters in. We'll see if my distractibility continues, but it's Heir of Fire of the Throne of Glass series. So let's see how far I get.
Nice. Kay, what about you?
I mentioned earlier, but I will be reading called Rebel's Blade by Frost K. I'm excited.
Yep. Rose, what about you?
So now that I'm finished with this Mistborn, I feel like I need something light. I feel, or I need to just dive in and read the second book. I really don't know.
Ooh, you're gonna have to feel it out. See if you're hooked.
I really don't know where I'm gonna go, but I am listening right now to A Court of Thorn and Roses on Audible, and so I think I'm gonna go back to that.
Is that your first time reading it?
Yes.
Whoa. Late to the party, Rose.
I know. It's like, what the heck? Why did I take so long to just jump into this? I guess I just was reading everything else. So I'm listening to it, and it is so good on Audible. Have y'all listened to it, the audio?
No. I think I have. I know I've at least listened to book 3 on audio. I'm pretty sure book 2. I can't remember. But yeah, I liked it on audio. It was good. You will... everyone, it's pretty universally stated that book 2 is the best. So
I know that's
so
what
you
I
have
keep
to
hearing.
you have to get through it so you can read book 2, especially if you like a little bit of some steam and some broody heroes. Let me just say that.
I do like some steam, I have to say.
Well, you'll have fun with that one.
Yeah. So that's on my list. That's what I'm reading.
Sweet. I have no idea what I'm reading because I am also in a reading slump. So I keep picking up books that I don't finish. I think I mentioned this on a previous episode. I thought I got out of my reading slump because I read the Rachel Hawkins Jane Eyre thriller book that just came out at the beginning of 2021. That. Yeah, it was, it definitely helped because I flew through that book, but now nothing really is hitting that same
No, Valia, don't say that because that's going to be what I'm about to be in.
No, but there's other Riley Sager books you could read.
Yeah, exactly. If this reading slump continues, I'll just go get another thriller.
Yeah, I love his books. I've read all of them, and he's definitely like one of my favorites. I don't know. So we'll see what I come up with. I feel like it needs to be a Kindle book so that it's not as overwhelming as holding a book, if that makes sense. So maybe I'll just read through really fast. So I'm going to be the odd duck out and not actually name a book. So that's
fair.
Fun.
You're allowed.
That's totally fair. I almost did that.
Well, good. Okay. Well, thank you for listening to Reading Queens. Before you go, please take a moment to leave us a review and make sure to follow us on Instagram at Reading Queens Pod. And then stay tuned for next week. Happy reading.
Bye. Bye.